In this video, we're going to be taking a look at recreating a design quite similar to this one using some existing resources that are available that I want to share with you. But there are a couple of unique design elements to this design that we want to get covered. Now, we're not going to be creating the Mustang design because we already have the Mustang design, but we will create a design similar to this, but I think we're going to use tigers instead. So first things first, let's go ahead and just type out the word tigers. And the font that we're going to be using is called Intrigue Script. And I just really like this font. It's kind of nice, bold font, so it'll make for easy cutting, and it's a good looking font. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to click, so I clicked on it, and if I click on it a second time, I'll get my rotation handles, and I'm just going to rotate the word tigers ever so slightly. And then what I want to do is I want to bring in an athletic tail. And I want to also share with you a font. Now we're going to put this font in the description where you can download this font if you haven't already downloaded it. But I want to show you where the athletic tails are coming from. And if you go to advancedtshirts.com, if you click on free stuff here, Tom has given us this tail pack that you could download. Now, Tom did give me the permission to convert his tail pack into a font. And so that's kind of a nice little freebie that Tom allowed us to do. And then, of course, distribute that to you. But I do want to put a shout out there to Tom because he did create these athletic tails for us. And they're really quite nice. So let me show you how this athletic tails work a little bit. So what we can do here is grab our text tool, and I'm just going to type out all capital letters just to kind of show you. I'm not going to show you every single tail. You could look through your tails, but it's called AA, Athletic Tails, and we'll just select our text here and our athletic tail font. So again, we'll just type in AA, there's Athletic Tails, and you can see we get a whole series. If you look at all the different tails, there's all kinds of different shapes and every letter of the alphabet and so on and so forth. So you can just pick whatever tail you like. So what we're going to do here is go to our font tab and click on break apart rhinestone text, and then what we'll have is each tail will be its own separate little piece. So we can decide whatever kind of tail we like. And let's just say I want to go with this one. So I'll pull this tail, make it bigger, position it kind of wherever you think you might want it. Um, you can see how this might connect up here. So whatever you think you want to do here. Once I get this tail where I want it, I think I'm going to put it something like this. Okay? I have to shape the bottom part of this tail the way I kind of want it. So let me show you what we're going to do here, because I have some ideas in mind. I'm going to switch to my shape tool, and I'm going to take these existing nodes, and I'm just going to move some things around here. So like, for example, I know this node, I want to be on the inside of my letter T. It looks kind of weird right now, but don't panic. If you delete some nodes here, things will kind of snap back into place. And you know, I've played around with CorelDRAW enough to know if I delete a particular node, you know, what to expect in that process. So I'll go ahead and hit 2 line here, just make a straight line. So we can do some different things, pull apart some different things. And you know, the best thing for you to do is to download this tail pack and just experiment with what deleting a node does, what you like, what you don't like. You just kind of finesse and massage this how you want it to look. Now, in the original demonstration, we had a basketball or, uh, you know, you could put a soccer ball, whatever you want. But what we're going to do here, let's go ahead and grab out our ellipse tool here in CorelDRAW, and let's draw a perfect circle. And I'm going to make my text a little bit different color here. And I'm going to push this text to the top of the design. So shift page up. There we go. And I'm going to put this ball I'm not gonna have it in the way of my I or my letter T here, but maybe something like this. So maybe it will be in the way of our G, which is okay, because I actually want to illustrate this point. So we're not going to do any outline, but we will do a black fill. We'll give our tail a black fill as well. And then what we'll do is we'll kind of finesse our tail a little bit. So maybe not quite that much. So what we'll do here is we'll just kind of pull this over. I'm going to pull this down. I am going to make this thicker as well. So you just kind of have to play with things a little bit and get it the way you think you want it. Now for the circle, I'm actually going to need this a little bit later. So I'm going to make it a little bit smaller. And I'm going to shift page down. I'm just kind of get it out of the way, but I want it to stay at that position. And I'll show you why here in a bit. So now what we need to do is we need to kind of fix where this G is intersecting our tail and also intersecting this shape as well. So let me show you how we're going to do that. We're actually going to take this round shape and weld it to our athletic tail. So we'll come up here and choose weld. If your toolbar does not have this option, this is something we added fairly recently. You can download an updated toolbar, but we have all these new options here. But we'll choose weld. And now you can see if we look at this by itself, especially in wireframe mode, you can see it's just one continuous piece. Okay, so let's go back to enhanced mode. So now what we want to do is we want to cut out this piece here. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a contour to the outside here, and we'll give it a specific amount. I'm going to try 2 millimeters and just see visually what that looks like. Okay, that's way too much. Now that tells me something right there. I'm going to actually back out. That actually tells me something right there, because what I need to do, first of all, let's get rid of all these, is I need to size this to the size of a finished size. So I'm going to make this 9.5 inches wide overall. I'll tell you what, let's go 9 because we're going to be adding some contours. So let's go, I'll tell you what, let's do 8 3/4. All right. So now I'm going to try that 2 millimeter offset. So we'll go back to our contour tool. We'll type in 2 mm to the outside and see what that gap looks like. And I think that gap actually looks pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and right click on that and break contour group apart. And then what we're going to do is take that purple piece, hold our shift key and grab our tail and trim that away. Now remember, just kind of keep in the back of your head that we applied a 2 millimeter offset here, because I want to show you where this gap is. You can kind of see where that gap is coming into play there. Okay, so this little piece right here, I actually don't want to chip that out, so I'm going to undo that, and I'm just going to move this so it I'm going to move this so it doesn't interact with that right there. So now we'll take our purple piece and our black piece and we'll do a trim. So now if we delete our purple piece, you're going to see what we've got there. Okay, this piece right here in the middle, we'll just double click on it and delete that because we don't want that either. Now the other thing that we did in this process that I don't actually mind is the fact that the tail is not actually connected to the text. I don't really like the way this looks, but I don't mind the separation there. So I'm just going to round this off by adding a couple of nodes by double clicking on the edge of that curve and then deleting these things. We're going to right click on this and choose cusp, right click on that and choose cusp, and we're going to right click on this and choose to line. That'll make a straight line, and then we're going to round that off by right clicking to curve, and we'll just round it off just a little bit. Use these control handles to finesse that curve a little bit, but I actually don't mind how that looks. Okay, So now you can kind of see what we have going on here. So now the next thing we want to do is we want to create this offset, this contour, if you will. So the way we're going to do that is by selecting the entire design and choosing the boundary option. And what that will do is it creates a new object that's just a boundary of our existing one. Then we'll go ahead and grab our contour tool and do a contour of our boundary. And the amount of how much you do, that's really up to you. It's whatever you think looks good. Let's just assume that looks good to us. I sometimes like a little bit thicker boundary. Let's just go ahead and give it a contrasting color. Shift page down to push it all the way to the back. Okay. Now the boundary object itself we no longer need, so we'll go ahead and select that and hit the delete key and get rid of that. And then what we're going to do is this inside piece we don't want or need. This one we don't want or need. This one we don't want or need. It has an outline property to it, which we'll go ahead and get rid of by right-clicking on that square. Gets rid of our outline. And now we've kind of got something kind of coming together, don't we? It's actually not looking too bad. So let's go ahead and take this over here and let's apply some real colors to it and see if we like it. So let's apply a glitter fill color here of silver. We'll do black for our tigers, and of course our black for our athletic tail, and that's already looking pretty darn sharp. I'm pretty excited about that. So now the next thing we want to do is this ball. So let's go ahead and do a shift page up. Take a look at this ball. We want to throw that ball in there. Now I want to show you how we go about creating a basketball, because it's really super simple, and I've done so many I just kind of have it all done by heart. But all I'm doing is taking my 3-point curve tool and going from edge to edge this direction, go edge to edge that direction, and the rest of it we're just going to make up. That's the best part, just make it up as you go. So we're going to do a little curve in one direction, and then we're going to do a little curve in the opposite direction, something kind of like that, and then do the same thing over here. So we'll come in here, we'll do a little curve in this direction, we'll kind of continue it, and now we're going the other way. Okay, something kind of like that. And then once you have your basic curve in right here, maybe it's not perfect, so we can finesse this all a little bit. So maybe I'll bring this back over here, whatever you want to do. We could add a control node in here, so this part will stay stationary. So let's grab our little arrowheads here, little control arms, and just kind of just make that a little bit nicer, however you want to do that, just to make a little basketball design. Now I want to add a thickness to these lines, but let me show you what we're going to do. We're going to come in here to our Smart Fill tool, and we're just going to click in each segment, and then we're going to grab those segments, select one, hold your shift key, click on the others, and pull them away. Well, we missed one, so we'll grab that one, make a duplicate. Now I want to apply a thickness to these lines. I don't know how much, but something. So we'll switch over here to our pen tool, and let's try 2 millimeters. Okay, so that's a bit thick, so we don't want 2 millimeters. Let's go 1. That's about the right thickness. So now we have this really nifty little macro which will create a space. So we'll open up our Vinyl Essentials macro and hit our Vinyl Spacer tool, and that creates the space in between where we had a outline thickness, and we're going to combine that into one shape. Now I can take my basketball and my circle and hit C and E, and that will line things up there. So this purple, I'm just going to push it to the back. Okay, I want it there, but I don't need it right now. But I do need to chip. I need a chip right there. And what I actually need is I need this little chip and then some. right? Because of the way this is. So we did 2 millimeters, but then we need a little bit of space too. So what we're going to do is we're going to apply contour, and let's do 4 millimeters to the outside and just see what it looks like. So you see this thickness is roughly the same as that. Let's see if that's going to look okay. So where this intersects this, let's trim. And now you can see how that basketball is trimmed out, and I think that actually looks pretty good. Even though this thickness isn't the same as this, I think for this particular purpose it doesn't necessarily need to be. I think it looks pretty good just the way it is. So we can squirrel away that basketball for later use. So you can see our design's kind of coming along here. Things are looking pretty good. Now there is one kind of major piece to the puzzle here that we definitely want to talk about, and that's customizing our athletic tail. One of the reasons we made our tail as thick as we did is because we want to be able to customize it. So what we're going to do here is we're just going to drag out, I'm going to use my 3-point curve, and I'm just going to kind of arbitrarily create a line there and there. Then we're going to grab our paint bucket tool and fill that shape. This is the area that is going to be allowed for customization. So now we'll do a little bit of a contour to the inside, and this now becomes our actual contour shape. So let me show you how this works. I'm going to make a copy of it. We don't need these lines anymore, and we really don't need this background shape. This shape I do like to leave in place because let me show you why. We're going to go ahead and type out the word mom, and then let's use, I don't know, let's just use academic for example. Okay, so there's academic, and what I want to do is I want to put mom right inside this shape. So I'm going to go ahead and select mom, grab my envelope tool, grab my eyedropper, and click on that shape, and you can see this is kind of taking the shape. Well, if I click somewhere on this outline, boom, now mom takes on that shape. Now I can select the two shapes and hit C and E, and I'm going to push this purple shape to the back. And now if I fill this with my glitter silver, we'll get a better idea of what this is all going to look like. This is going to, of course, be filled with orange. Now, you tell me if that isn't an absolute awesome looking design. And it was super simple to make, but you won't see this out there. This takes a little bit extra effort, these little cutouts and what have you, but it's really a sharp looking design, and you can see how easy it is. You know, you could put anything in here, sister, grandma, dad, whatever you wanted to. It wouldn't take much to personalize this. You could put a last name, whatever you want to do. Lots of flexibility there. So it's pretty simple to create. Now, of course, this isn't the entire story because we can't, especially if we're doing glitter and stuff, we do have to do a little bit more prep work on the file to actually get it ready to cut. But before we look into that, I wanted to take one look at doing a rhinestone outline around here just to see what this would look like. So to do that, again, we would go into our contour tool. Now, I don't know how much contour to do, but we're just going to kind of eyeball things. Okay, so we're going to do about that much. Let's give it a different color so we can see it. Okay, there we go. Now we can see it. And you can see, too, should point this out. Look at how that would just absolutely pop right off the shirt if we did something like that. So we could do white, then silver, then black, or maybe this black would be your shirt color. I mean, there's a lot of different variables there, right? But you'll find that those extra outlines, while they're more work, more expense, they really make that design pop. So maybe we'll go ahead and leave that one in place as an option. And then we'll take that same outline that we did for the secondary HTV color. We'll do the same outline for our stones. So For this design, I'm going to use SS16 stones just because I can. And I really like, especially when we're just doing an outline like this, I like the extra boldness of those SS16 stones. So what we're going to do here is everywhere there's a corner, we're just going to select a node and then hold our shift key. And everywhere there's a corner in this design, we are going to click everywhere there's a transition. So there's another transition. Here's another transition. So we're just going to click on those nodes. Anywhere there's a transition, that one doesn't count. There's a transition, but there shouldn't be. So anywhere, see, this is a major transition coming around. All right. So once we've done that, what we're really doing is we're telling EasyStone, drop a stone at every node that we selected and then figure out whatever fits in between. So that's essentially what we're doing here. So we're using crystal, we hit add stones, and then you could see the result, the default result we get from EasyStone is really quite good. Now there is some work that needs to be done, so let's go ahead and do that. We're going to select the entire design, delete our stone paths, check for overlapping stones. So we'll go ahead and do that. We'll just kind of select a piece of the design here, check for overlapping stones. We'll check for overlapping stones. We will check for overlapping stones down here. And we'll check for overlapping stones this direction. All right, I think we got them pretty well all covered. But I want to just kind of look at, right here you can see obviously we have a collision. So we'll select that, go to our editing tab and delete overlaps. And it fixed that. That all looks really good. That looks good. That looks good. So what we want to do is just make sure that there are no overlapping stones anywhere. Now here you can see this extra little bit of gap right there. It's kind of tight here, kind of tight there, but there's a little bit of gap there. I'd probably come in here and do a quick respace. Watch that gap just kind of fill in there. It's a minor touch, but you know what? Those minor touches, I'd probably do the same thing going this direction too. Even out that spacing because it is just a touch different, not much, but just enough to make me take a second look. All right, and that's it. So now you can see, wow, what an awesome design that looks like. I'm going to right click and simulate the stones and what have you. But how cool is that? Really pops, really good looking design. Now, we talked about there being a bit of work to do in regards to setting this design up to cut properly for glitter material. And it's pretty simple to do, but there is a little bit of work involved. So let's go ahead and group this design together and make a copy and then ungroup. The reason I grouped it together first before I made my copy is because we had the stones that were simulated. And if you try to copy without grouping it together first, when it goes to recreate the duplicates, it takes a little bit longer. So it's just kind of a habit I got into. All right, so let's talk about this. What we're going to do is we're going to set our outline. We're going to set our HTV first. So we're going to set the silver first and then the black. Okay. Now, in this case, we're going to set it up where we set the trap on the silver here. So for mom is really sitting on top of solid black. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut a hole in black using the trim function. Then we can delete mom. Okay, now you can see it didn't actually cut a hole, and that happens sometimes. So let me just show you what we're talking about here. Let's pull these two pieces apart. What I want to do, if we look at this in wireframe right now, see here, it appears as though mom is in the tail, okay, but it's really not. So what we're going to do here is we're going to delete. We're going to bring this back to how it was. Okay, so now when we move mom, mom is not part of the tail, but it's important that you know this because it does happen from time to time. What we're supposed to be able to do is trim our tail with our mom, and we're supposed to have a hole. We should see white here, but we don't. and there's a reason. And anytime that happens where you're performing a trim properly and you don't get a trim result, that's because one or the other the curve has to be reversed. So if I double click on my athletic tail and choose this option to reverse curve direction, now when I select mom and my tail and hit trim, ta-da, now I have my hole cut through. Okay, so those are just kind of an important little tip for you to know when you're doing this. So back up here on our actual design, we have that same situation. So let me fix my tail from our previous trim that did not work. And then we will come back in and make a proper trim. So we know what the problem is. We know that we have a solid hole there. So we have to double click on our tail to change its direction. Then we can select our mom and our tail. And the last object that we select, that's what gets trimmed. So now if we move mom out of the way, you could see we could see through to the underlying silver color. So now we no longer need mom. So now the next step then, of course, is we need to create a trap for the silver, because we want our black to just ever so slightly sit on top of our silver. So to do that, let's go ahead and take care of this trap on our black here. But really, when you're setting up your trap, really what we should do is think about how we're going to make this design. So let's talk about that for just a moment. In this setup, what we're going to set this file up for is we're going to set the file up for glitter, regular heat transfer vinyl, glitter. So we can put glitter on top of heat press vinyl, but we can't put regular heat press vinyl on top of glitter. That's why we need to create the trap. So for the basketball, it can just sit right on top, no trap needed. But we do need to create the trap between silver and black, okay? So it really depends on the type of materials that we're going to use, but this is the way I set this file up, so that's what we're going to go with. So again, the way to set your trap is we're going to do the tail first, is we're going to do a contour. I use 1 millimeter to the inside. There's that tiny bit of trap. So we right click and break contour group apart. Then what we're going to do is we're going to take the purple and the silver and we're going to perform a trim. And what should happen is you should see our silver being cut out, and it's not. Okay, so our silver is not being cut out. So we've had this happen before, right, where we perform that trim. Maybe I didn't grab my silver like I thought I did. That could be part of the problem too. But yes, now you can see our tail is in fact cut out. So that is going to work. I think I grabbed my black of my tigers instead. So now we need to do the same thing. Let's look at wireframe for a moment here, because this is important too. You see how tigers is already set up at the moment? See these overlapping lines? Well, we can't have that. So always double check this in wireframe before you get too involved. So we're going to take tigers, and all we have to do is perform a weld. And you can see that took care of all those overlaps. Let's go ahead and delete our purple ball because we're not going to use that no more. And then behind here we had that, remember we had that mom shape? We're pretty committed to this design to be in this configuration. We have other copies of it too. And that's why we always make copies if we want to do something different down the road. But anyhow, now we got to perform this trap. So we're going to take our tigers text here. We're going to do contour to the inside 1 millimeter. We're going to break that contour group apart. We're going to take the contour that we just made and our outside silver piece, perform a trim, and then we're going to delete our contour. And if we go back to enhanced mode, visually we don't really see any difference. But if I double click on my silver, see that Little bit of overlap on the black all the way through the design. All the way through. You can see that happening even on the athletic tail. So now we have a perfect trap set up, and we have a great looking design set up. Very, very simple and easy to do. So that is the finished product. So what I would probably do, group it together, make a duplicate again. And so this is our finished piece that we're going to do our mock-up. And then what I would do is ungroup the original, and we will select the entire design. We'll turn off our simulation by hitting Shift S. We'll give this just a generic, and give this just a generic. Okay, and let's check for overlaps. No overlapping stones. Good. So now we could go ahead and add a weed box, which we'll go ahead and do that again. And now let's perform our color separations. Show you what that looks like. So once you have your design here, we just right click on E. That'll bring up our export dialog box. When you're doing a combo of HTV, heat transfer vinyl, and stones, we always use the combo option. So we'll choose combo. And let's go ahead, and I'm going to save this as a file because this is going to become a new design for us. So we're going to do tiger basketball mom. Tigers basketball mom. There we go. Okay, so we'll go ahead and we are exporting. I tell you what we're going to do here. I'm going to back up because I always export my proof image first, and it actually does kind of matter. So when you're exporting your proof image, we hit E, we left click on E, and we're going to export a JPEG for this example right to the desktop like so. So always export your finished proof first, then the vector file. Right click on E to export a vector file. So left click to export your JPEG, right click to export your vector. We do have the same options here, export proof, export vector, but I try to get in the habit of using these quick select buttons along the bottom. That's why they're there. So we'll right click here on export. We'll choose combo. I always export in EPS, SVG, and PLT file formats. The file name we don't actually have to specify because we already saved the CorelDRAW file, or we should have. You see here we actually didn't, so let me show you that. So when you're exporting, make sure you choose the save CDR file because we haven't actually saved this file yet. So now we'll go ahead and re-export. Of course, we had already exported it previously, so we want to override it. And now you can see our file has a name. So now we right click on export vector, choose combo again, and now we do not have to define a file name because we already have one defined. But we could override it if we really wanted to. And we'll just choose export files, and then you can see what the result is. We get our Rhinestone template, and then of course we get our HTV output as well. Okay, so anyhow, I hope you enjoyed this design, and hopefully that shows you how we can take our athletic tail font, which again, remember, there'll be a link in the description where you can download this athletic tail font. Not something that we created. We did create the font, but the actual tails themselves, of course, we have to give credit to Advanced T-Shirts. Tom over there at Advanced T-Shirts got some neat CorelDRAW plugins of his own for doing T-shirt graphics and whatnot, but he created those athletic tails for us and allowed us to redistribute them. So thank you, Tom, for that. But hopefully that gives you a really good idea of some different things you can do with these athletic tails. And yes, this is a fairly advanced demonstration, but at least it gives you something to strive for with your CorelDRAW skills, because when you're able to create artwork like this on the fly, really this is like a 10-minute job. And when you're able to create artwork like that and do exactly what your customers are asking for yourself when you need it, it's really powerful rather than relying on a designer to do it for you. So this is a pretty advanced tutorial, so obviously you're going to have to watch it 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe a dozen times over to understand all the different processes. But once you do, I think you'll find the techniques to be pretty slick. Thanks for watching.